Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world listening to us today. We are here on our podcast, Teens, Tech, and AI. Inshallah, today we have an amazing teen for you. It's not a teen, but it's teeny and tiny. And so we're happy to have him here today, inshallah. And we will get started. Brother Mustafa,
Assalamu
Bismillah.
alaikum rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me on this amazing podcast. You've been doing amazing things recently,
Wa khairan.
and I'm excited to be a part of this.
Now, Jazakumullah khairan, Brother Mustafa. We've heard a lot about you from our last episode with Brother Mubashir, and so definitely we're looking to get down to learn more about you. So, inshallah, I think we just want to get started with telling us a bit more about yourself on things we can't even find on like LinkedIn. I'm sure we can find a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, but take us way back to things we can't even find on LinkedIn. Bismillah.
Okay, so first of all, my name is Muhammad Mustafa Jawad. I prefer to go by Mustafa. There's a whole backstory to that as well,
Okay.
but that's pre-teen eras, so I don't want to get into that. Um, I'm currently 24 years old. I recently graduated in with a bachelor's in data management analysis from Bovey College here in beautiful Seattle. First of all, I'm an immigrant from Pakistan. I was born and raised in Lahore, Pakistan, and I moved here March 2021, and I've been here ever since. And I have absolutely been enjoying this part of my life, and it's just a blessing to be here.
So I think it's going to be very interesting then because I think a lot of your teenage ages will take us all the way back to Lahore and Pakistan. So talk to us about what growing up in like Lahore in Pakistan even looks like. Can you
Mm.
start with that?
It looks very different depending on which socioeconomic part of Pakistan you're from.
Okay.
Lahore is one of the bigger cities from Pakistan, and it's absolutely a wonderful city. Let
Mm,
me just start by saying the probably the most well-known saying about Lahore,
mm,
which is "Jinne Lahore nahi vekhya, wo
mhm,
jamya nahi." And
mhm,
this is in Punjabi, which roughly translates to "Whoever has not seen Lahore has
mhm.
never been born."
In my mother's womb, then I guess.
Yeah. So
Mm,
it's a beautiful city. It's an amazing city. It's the place that I call home.
mm,
Most of my family is there. I grew up my entire life there.
mm,
Um, going through the small streets and trying out all the street food and this and that.
mhm,
So it's very amazing because, like I said, going back to the socioeconomic part of uh, this idea of being brought up in a place like Lahore, you get to see very different, very diverse sides of life and how life is taken sometimes seriously and sometimes not so seriously, depending on which end of the spectrum you are on of the socioeconomic uh, idea in Pakistan. And Alhamdulillah, I was very blessed to grow up in a very privileged area, in a very privileged household, in a very privileged lifestyle. Alhamdulillah for all of that. It also taught me a lot of things about myself, about others, and moving to the US was also a huge eye opener for me. It was a massive perspective change for me as well.
I see. So that's super interesting then. So all of your life was in Lahore. Is that right? Did you move to any
Yes.
cities in Pakistan? Did you live anywhere else? It was just in Lahore.
So I was in Dubai for a very minute amount of my life,
Okay.
maybe a year or 2 years
Okay.
at most.
Uh-huh.
And that was also a part of my life that I have very vivid memories of. It was a long time ago. I was very young at the time,
Hmm.
but Alhamdulillah, that was also a growing aspect for me,
Hmm.
although not as much as. fast forward to when I was in my actual teens,
I see.
that's where I really started to become the person I am today.
I see. So walk us back then. You grew up in Lahore, spent some time in Dubai, maybe went back to Lahore and then came back to the US. How was schooling like for you? I will say basically like school as in school and like Islamic studies and all of that. How was that for you? How was like your early upbringing like with that?
I love that you asked me about Islamic studies
Mm,
because even though it's known as the Islamic Republic of Pakistan,
yes.
there was not a huge emphasis on Islamic studies during my middle school and high school
Mm-hmm.
era, essentially. When I was younger, I would go to a lot of Islamic classes. My parents put me in organizations where I was able to connect with the Deen and learn more about the Deen.
Mm-hmm.
Alhamdulillah.
Mm-hmm.
However, within middle school, we have this subject called Islamiyat,
Yes.
which is essentially the history of Islam,
Mm-hmm.
summarized into a small book for the kids to learn about and all that stuff. So that was something that I was able to connect with as well throughout middle school and high school. And I'm sure you know about our matriculation system in Pakistan.
No.
So there's the GCSE system or GCSE system, which is O levels, A levels.
Yes.
The way that my schooling happened was I changed schools maybe twice or thrice.
Okay.
And the first school that I was at, I was there till fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to the next school, which was known as Academic Center of Education.
Okay.
And it's short for, we used to call it ACE. So
Okay.
ACE.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of my middle school was spent.
Okay.
So up until eighth grade, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And up until this point, I was following the O level system, the GCSE system. I was following that system. And when I moved from ACE to this other school system called Beacon House, I switched over to after O1, which is like basically ninth grade. I did my midterm exams for O2 and I didn't have the best result, you know. And so I thought maybe this isn't for me. And so I switched over to the matriculation system, which is the Pakistani education system. And so I did my matriculation, so ninth and 10th. We call basically what I did was ICS, which is intermediate in computer science. And then from there, I went on to college.
Interesting. But it seems to me like the system of education you're talking about seems more like a British education system. Is that correct to say that's what you had before you switched?
Yes. Yeah. So before I switched, it was the British education system that I was going through. And during halfway to 10th, I just didn't think it was for me.
Interesting. But then I guess like that's a very interesting question of like somebody like you in like a place like Pakistan thinking something like that wasn't for you. How did you come to that decision? How did you say that to your parents? Because I would assume there's just a standard way everybody like similar in Nigeria you just had to go through. Like, how did you come up with that decision of like this wasn't for me and like you switched?
Well, so a pivotal figure in my life was my uncle from my maternal side.
Mhm.
And he actually used to tutor me throughout O levels and ninth, 10th, and even when I switched to matriculation. So he actually played a huge role in me making that decision to switch over and helping me, have that conversation with my parents and stuff. So I would say he was the reason I switched,
Oh,
probably. Yeah.
right. So, so then I would assume like you had like a lot of relatives and family members and all of that. How did you build that relationship with this your particular uncle? How was that?
In the beginning, it was obviously more of a tutor student relationship, right? There was a very uh, long amount of time when I was with him where I didn't view that as the uncle nephew relationship, and it was purely for being a better student, right? But as I grew older into my late teens, I started to realize that, maybe this is good. And it turned out to be good. A lot of the studying techniques I even used to get through college here in the United States, and that was really helpful.
Interesting. So then take me back again. I think I'm still trying to digest like your middle school and like I was middle school like for you. How was your day like back then? Like you went to school, came back. I was. What did you do during school? After school, what did you do for fun? How was that period like? Just even in middle school.
Yeah. So middle school, I always used to be the fat, quiet kid.
Oh,
Uh, Yeah,
okay.
and I show an old picture of myself to a
Mhm.
lot of people, and they're like, "I don't believe this is you." So that was the period when I was a little shy. I wasn't always, making a lot of friends or anything like that. I would always hang out with, as we call the nerds. So I always wanted to explore other options, but I think I never got the chance to do that. And partly maybe because it was of my shyness, or maybe it was something else, but it was very interesting. Alhamdulillah, like I said, I had a very privileged life growing up in Pakistan. I would go to school, and of course I would have friends, and we would have sports and extracurricular activities and all that stuff. We would have classes and all that stuff, and we would go to school from, I believe, 8 to 2 p.m. And we used to have four classes before lunch break, and then four classes after lunch break. And so that was the system that became familiar with. That is what school looked like to me. And they would cycle through what classes we would have before and after lunch throughout the week. And so the night before, I would be packing the books that I needed for the next day. And alhamdulillah, at home, I think most of the time I was focused on getting better at soccer. I used any and every opportunity I could to go out and play soccer, whether it would be on the streets, whether it be on the ground with the friends, or in any way, shape, or form. I would just try and get a ball and just kick it around.
Wow, that's actually interesting because I think I want to actually know sort of like how you came specifically to soccer. How did that happen for you?
So during middle school, this is at Ace, and we used to have sports and extracurricular activities, and soccer was one of the main ones. Whenever our PE coach, as we used to call him, would ask what game we wanted to play, whether we wanted to play cricket or soccer, the whole class erupted for a vote to soccer. You know, unless it was the summers, then we would pick swimming. You know,
Oh,
and yeah. So I also grew up swimming as well, but I think the reason that I really got into soccer was because of another maternal uncle of mine,
okay.
not the same one. This was a different one, and he was really into soccer. He had been to the UK, and he'd been to all these games, and he was a really massive soccer fan. And this one time, he took me to play with his friends, and I was just a small little 12, 13-year-old kid among all these like 25 plus something year old people, people with kids and stuff. And I think that really intrigued me to start playing soccer. And I think the reason that I wanted to get better at it was because whenever I would play with my friends at school, I was not always the best player,
Mhm.
given my physical appearance as well. So it wasn't the easiest for me to be good at it, and so that's why it pushed me to be better at it.
That's actually very interesting then because I guess like parents would have kids that are shy or like basically like not directly like fit for soccer and stuff. So how does a kid like you, not in shape, like shy, go then to become like this guy who is really like in shape, who's like fit, who loves to play soccer, is like at least even I guess on this path to like pro and stuff. How did that transformation begin to happen? When you decided you wanted to do this, how did that shape all of the things you did?
Yeah. So that's actually a large part of my life,
Mm,
playing soccer and getting better at it. Even though it started as something, I could have an activity on the weekends with my uncle to playing with my friends at school. It really, I think, started developing when I moved here to the United States. When that happened, I actually had a lot more opportunity to play soccer at a higher level. And so I went to a couple of master classes, as you might call, a couple of camps. I went to Miami. I worked with the coaches from the Premier League, from the second level, second division of Premier League in England as well. And that was a really huge turning point. I met and I still know some people from that camp that are playing at international level. One of my friends, Noor Aude, he actually just recently got called up to the Lebanon under 21 team, and so he's in touring in Saudi right now, and he's playing there. Um, so that was a huge push for me to start becoming better.
interesting. So you're saying we're gonna be seeing this guy in the future Pakistan like team then?
Hopefully, we're just gonna transfer him over from Lebanon to Pakistan. Yeah.
Interesting. So then, like, talk to me then about then how you did all of this soccer, plus like your schooling, plus like your Islamic education and all of that, because you're somebody I know and I've seen a lot of you in like the masjid. So I would believe like a lot of your Islamic grounding came also from some time in Pakistan. So how did you combine? How did you gain all of this Islamic knowledge plus all of this knowledge for school, plus combining all of that with soccer, even while you were in like Pakistan? Because then I would assume you have other chores to do, a lot of homework and all of that. How did you balance all of that out for you back then?
Yeah. So, like I said, school was 9 to 2. That's done and dusted, right?
Mm.
I would come home, I would have an hour, maybe 2 hours of rest. I would play video games, again, soccer video games specifically, and get some food and whatever. And then at 4 p.m., I would head out to my uncle's place for tutoring. And then usually I would spend about 4, 5 hours, depending on how much work needed to be done with him, just working on that. And so we had pretty late nights in Pakistan, and so that actually gave me a little bit more leeway at nighttime to play soccer. And I think a lot of my desire to visit the masjid, as you mentioned, came from my uncle that I went to tutoring for as well. So I was not the only student that he would be tutoring, and he had a home tutoring center basically, and he lived maybe 5 minutes walk from the masjid. And so at every salah that we would have to pray there, which usually included Asr, Maghrib, and the occasional Isha as well, he would actually have all of the kids, about 20, 25, 30 kids almost, walking to the masjid to make the salah. So I think that was a huge part of why I wanted to become more interested in becoming, a member of the community.
Wow, subhanallah. This is that's super amazing because then it would seem to me like these are like very small things, but they've been formative to you for like who you are. So then like
Mhm.
walk me through then like when you did this move into like the matriculation system, did things change for you? How was that period like for you after you switched? And basically what are the things that happened after that?
So what kind of change are you thinking of? Could you clarify the question a little bit more?
Or was your schooling still the same? Were things like the same for you? Or did anything change even like with the programs you were doing with your uncle and all of that? Like what what does it mean to change from one of those systems to another basically?
Hmm. I think the biggest change that I faced, at least in terms of education, was that I had to go through very complex concepts for me at the time when I was in the O levels, the British schooling system. And when I moved to matriculation, and as much as this, almost breaks my heart to say this, those books have been the same for almost, decades, essentially. And so matriculation relies heavily on rote learning. And Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed me with good memory, and I was able to, with the help of my uncle, you know, basically learn a lot of those ideas and concepts, even though it was just through rote learning. I think that was the biggest thing. And then I continued tutoring with my uncle until I went to college or university, as we call it in Pakistan. And that training basically continued. You know, the values that he was instilling in me and all those other students, I believe that even if I went ahead and talked to any other of those students from that time, I'm sure they would still have that value of going to the masjid to pray salah.
Interesting. Wow. So then, like, when did the decision to like move your education to the US come in? How did you decide what you even wanted to do, and how was the process of even coming like for you?
Yeah, so after I got done with my high school, what we call college in Pakistan, which was the final 2 years of matriculation, I went to university in Pakistan actually,
Oh,
and it was a liberal arts university.
okay.
And my friend at the time, Hamza Rasul Khan, he actually uh, he not only invited me, but he also insisted that I go to the same university as him.
Okay.
Because we actually our relationship started really developing in the last 2 years of matriculation, and right after that, it was natural for us to go to the same university, same college, you know, and learn the same or relatively the same industry. And so he ended up actually going into textile industry, but I was studying graphic design there. And so a lot of those skills I was actually able to use even afterwards as like a freelancer. And I picked up a lot of skills in the 2 years that I spent there. And I never completed my bachelor's at the arts university just because of the political landscape that was forming within Pakistan. My dad actually suggested that I move to the US, given that my sister was already here, my brother was already here, my mother was already here. And so it seemed natural to move here and continue my higher education.
So, did you transfer credits? Did you have to start from afresh? How was that period of moving like?
So, Alhamdulillah, I was always the youngest kid in my class
Mhm.
growing up. And so that actually gave me a bit of an edge, even though I had to restart my bachelor's when I moved to the United States. And originally, I came to Bellevue College and I started with my associate's degree. But I decided to forego the associate's degree. And instead of doing a 2 year associate and a 2 year bachelor's, I completed my bachelor's within 3 years.
Whoa. Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting. So then, sort of like, how was the difference like when you moved here with like the learning, with like the things you used to do in Pakistan? How were things like transfer? How transferable were things like for you?
So most of the credit, actually, none of the credits from Pakistan were actually transferable to colleges here in the US. The number one thing that I did to plan to come to US was get my IELTS. IELTS is basically an English proficiency test. It's also interchangeable with the TOEFL. And Alhamdulillah, I was able to score, I think, a 8.5 on the first try on my IELTS.
Wow,
So,
nine.
yeah, Alhamdulillah.
Okay, mashallah.
Yeah. So I think most of that also goes to my dad because he started helping me practice my English from a very young age. So when I was 13, he just started, I think there was a period of about 2 or 3 months where he told me, if you want to talk to me in English or don't talk to me at all. And so that was a really tough time because I wasn't really good at English at the time, but that really helped shape my English into the English that it is today. And I think the reason that we need to do IELTS is because it's not English is not considered the language that is spoken in Pakistan, even though a lot of people do speak English. Oh, so after I did that IELTS, I applied for my college here at Bellevue College. I applied for the associates. I got into that and I was able to apply for an F1 visa from Pakistan. So that consulate, the US consulate, is actually about 5 hour drive from where I live. And
More.
so I had to make that drive out with a couple of friends, and I made it a good time out of it. We have the beautiful Faisal Mosque there in Islamabad, in the capital, and I was able to apply for my visa there, and alhamdulillah, it got accepted.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah. So then, talk to me about then your choice of like choosing the course that you chose. How did you decide that? And then like, how did that happen for you?
So the reason I chose Washington State was because most of my family was here. Before I moved, my brother was actually in New York University, and he was studying there, but he transferred his credits here to Bellevue College as well. And so he had already completed his associates at Bellevue College, and that's why he suggested to me that I think Bellevue College would be a good idea. And naturally, my sister, my brother, and my mother being already here in Washington State, it seemed like a natural idea to go to Bellevue College.
I see. Then, what courses did you have to choose? Like, how did you decide which course to study?
So, like I said in the beginning, I was doing an associate's, and that associate's was just business administration, I believe. And at the time, I understood that business, the degree, not to offend anyone with a business degree, it wasn't really the most proactive degree to earn, especially in the environment that I had been placed into, seeing all this tech around me and all that stuff. And so I think choosing data management and analysis specifically came primarily from doing istikhara. At the time, I hadn't done istikhara before for anything else, and this was the new dua that I was learning, and so I decided to give it a try. And alhamdulillah, because of it, it made the decision that much easier.
Wow, subhanallah. Okay, so then walk me through now. Now you're in the US, now you're doing soccer, and you mentioned you went to all of these places, Florida and all of these places. How were you doing that with your studies?
With my studies,
Yes, how are you combining all of those?
right? So I'm actually working with a oil rig company based in Texas, Wellsite Navigator. I'm a data analyst with them, so I'm writing SQL queries for them. I'm making dashboards for them. It's really fun stuff. And alhamdulillah, it's a great opportunity that I was able to avail through a community member here in Seattle, actually. And I think the reason that Mubashir and I started the Sorba Soccer was because we actually realized a massive market gap. Uh, he also has a similar background in tech as me. And so we were able to bring those kind of business and business intelligence skills to that market. And I think having those combined skills allowed us to place ourselves very uniquely in the market because we realized that there's a lot of soccer camps, but there's not a lot of soccer camps with a focus on Islamic education. And so myself having started learning more about Islam and getting closer to Deen when I moved to the US, it also seemed very natural for that to be the next step.
I see. So then, like, how has that like struggle been like of like doing the job and then having to run this and everything around that? How has that been for you?
I'm a big believer in the sentence that if you consider work to be work, it will feel like work. And what I mean by that is if people really enjoy what they do, it merely becomes play for them. It
Hmm,
doesn't feel like work anymore. So both data analytics and the Soha soccer camp, they're very much play to me. I genuinely enjoy doing both of them, and instead of draining my energy, it actually energizes me even more, and it pushes me to do more.
interesting. So then, like, how did you think like this culture of like taking work as just like fun? Where did that come from for you?
That's a good question. I would have to think more on that. But if I were to give you a short answer, I believe I found it somewhere in a book.
Hmm, I see.
I don't remember which book,
Uh-huh,
but I do remember reading it somewhere.
I see. So then, like, talk to me now. We're getting into a world where a lot of things are like now changed a lot by like tech and like AI and all of that. Before you applied for like this data analytics and stuff, I'm sure maybe AI wasn't as much as where it is now. As the appearance of AI sort of, how has that made you think about like what you've studied and how is that affecting what you do now? How do you bring it into your work now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the company that I work at, Wellsite Navigator, is a very AI forward sort of company. They understand that it's a tool that can be used to improve the efficiency and also the productivity for all the workers. And so even the meetings that I have with my CTO, he actually encourages me to use AI in ways that might help me increase the efficiency for, let's say, a SQL query that I'm trying to pull data from. And so I think it's essentially a tool that should be used and not misused. Because I do see a lot of people, even very close friends, business partners, that rely heavily on AI. And I'm sorry to say this, but it's making them dull. It's taking away their critical thinking. It's taking away a lot of that thing that makes you human, that makes your brain yours. And so I do think it's an amazing tool that people should use with caution. And if they don't know how to use it, now is it can be a better time to learn how to use it.
Mm. So then, like, when you say like people to like use it well and stuff, how have you like been trying to not fall into that trap of like not making it like make you dull? What do you do differently that you think like other people should also be doing?
I think I can explain this better with an example.
Sure.
If I want to write a SQL query, I want to pull data from this table and that table, and I have multiple rows of data that I need to show and build into a dashboard. First thing I would do is naturally try to understand the logic of how all those tables are connected to each other. And I would try to understand what the business question is, what the business needs. That's for me to decide. AI cannot decide that as well as I would, because simply I have more context about that specific business question that I'm trying to answer with the SQL query.
Mhm, mhm,
And so I start with building the logic out for
mm,
that SQL query. I give it all the joins, how to join the table, which table to join, and on which keys and all that stuff. And at the end, I give it to AI to make it more efficient. I try to make it quicker. Can I load this data quicker? Is there a more efficient way to do this query? Use this logic and give me a more efficient answer.
I see. Interesting. So then, like, with the work you're doing, with all of this, building dashboards and all of that, where do you see like the future of like AI going with all of this?
I don't think I have the right knowledge or skill set to answer that question, to be honest with you.
Okay, let me rephrase the question then.
Okay.
Based on what you're doing now, how do you think, at least what you are doing now, where do you
Mhm.
see the way you're doing it in like the next 2, 3 years, like building dashboards, working with data, with where AI is going now, 2, 3 years? What do you think you'll stop doing, and what do you think you'll be doing more of?
Throughout my data analytics journey, I've always been attracted to building the dashboards. Given my background in going to art school and learning graphic design, that's helped me bring those skills into building dashboards that not only look good, but also tell a story while keeping, the information to as minimal as possible, essentially. Um, so it's very easy to get lost, as the kids say, lost in the sauce. You know, it's very easy to get lost in what trying to make a dashboard way too beautiful or something like that. And I think that's definitely something that I want to continue focusing on and continue improving on, is making dashboards that tell a story without confusing the person who might not understand or might not be as eligible within the data realm.
Mm,
On the back end side, I think writing SQL queries is something that AI is constantly getting better at. And I think that is something that could potentially, given more context and given more knowledge about the databases that you're working with and the data in general that you're working with, I think AI will be able to write most of those queries for you without doing a lot of stuff.
I see. For somebody like you said you went to art school, right?
Hmm.
How was the intersection of art and like basically the data work you do? How does that like show up for you every day?
Yeah, so I worked with a lot of visualization tools when I was in art school, and I think that helped me not only gain a better understanding of what design can look like and what it should look like, but also how to improve those designs and just overall having design, as I'm sure you've heard the saying, a picture is worth a thousand words. Graphs are just that. They're live pictures, if you will. They'll change with data, but at the end of the day, they're just a picture on your screen that's conveying a story. And
Hmm.
so having learned that during art school, conveying stories through images, whether that be a sketch, whether that be a photograph, a video, a canvas illustration, regardless of what it is, at the end of the day, you are trying to convey a story. A large part of data analytics is actually conveying a story, looking at the data
Hmm.
that you are adept at reading, but somebody, let's say your CEO is not, or the sales team, they're not really, they don't understand what all these numbers are on the screen.
Mhm.
So being able to use that skill set of telling a story with pictures, that has played a very pivotal role in being, a data analyst essentially.
Interesting. Wow. I didn't know about your art like background because I read the
Yeah.
book. There's a book I'm reading now. It's called I think Art of Design. It's a book by Peter Gold,
Mm,
and he's sort of talking about the intersection of design, faith, and I think like entrepreneurship. So that's pretty like very interesting to see that.
yeah.
But I guess like the next part I wanted to talk about is you mentioned something about you see people not using like AI well and all of that. What advice would you sort of give to somebody as we step into this future that is AI infused, right, or infused? What advice would you give people, and like how do you think they should use AI better?
Mm. Natural stuff, and I think artificial things need to be demarcated with a very broad line. If you look at a lot of places, even in Redmond now, you can see natural trees that are natural growth, and you can see those cell towers that look like trees. That is artificial, right? That artificial tree is only going to give you 5G signals. It's not going to give you oxygen. You need oxygen to survive. You don't need 5G signals to survive, right? So I think just having the skill to be able to demarcate between those two will help our future generations not become so dependent on AI to the point that they can even think for themselves.
Hmm.
Like I mentioned, I know people personally, close friends, that I ask them a question and they will literally put it on Gemini. They will put it on Copilot or whatever. They want to change. They make a flyer and they want to change the design for it just a little bit. They ask Gemini to do it. So these are skills that I think should be learned, and learn the actual skills. Don't just rely on AI so much that you don't have any skills at the end of the day. Let's say AI crashes. There's a boom. There's a bubble burst or whatever, and now you don't have AI. But that's not the only thing you don't have. You also lost your critical thinking. You
Hmm.
also lost your ability to gain skills. You
Hmm.
also lost the dependency that you had on something that's artificial.
Hmm. I see. Okay, then let's move on to just we believe parents and like teens are listening to this podcast, right? What advice do you have for like parents on like based on your own childhood? If you were to be raising your own kids in the future, what advice would you give parents based on your own upbringing?
I think my father, alhamdulillah, he always, not only he provided the best he could for me and my siblings, he also let us have ownership. He let us make decisions for ourselves. He let us, he let us have conversations that maybe we weren't being able to have with other people, right? And I think coming from the perspective of a child and not a parent, I think the best advice I can give them is let your child be themselves. And I don't mean that in the liberal way. Astaghfirullah, may Allah protect us from
Um,
all of that. What I mean by that is that they're also human beings, right? And so if you let them be human beings, if you let them develop their personalities, they will go on to achieve beautiful things and amazing things in life, inshallah.
hmm. So now let's switch that advice to we have teenagers, inshallah, listening. What advice would you give to like teenagers like you or even younger?
Listen to your parents, first of all.
Hmm.
I think a lot of the times it's very easy for kids to say, "Oh, Baba, you don't know. Oh, Mama, it's not like that." It's very easy to say that. I think just the fact that they have literally decades more experience than you will ever have goes to show that they know what they're talking about. In the moment, it might not seem like it's something you want to do, but they will be speaking out of your best interest always. In my experience, that has always been the case.
Yes.
And the second thing, and it's just as important as the first, is stay close to your deen. Learn about your deen. Don't follow your deen, but just because your parents told you to, you know. And I know these two points might collide with each other, but they actually go hand in hand. Yes, you listen to your parents, but you also want to learn about your deen in a way that you're learning it for the sake of the deen. You're not learning it for the sake of culture, for the sake of being born into a Muslim family, which is a blessing in itself.
Hmm. Okay, I think like the last question I have for you is sort of what advice you have even for me talking to you.
That's a very tough question to answer.
For me,
It's 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 difficult to give you advice. I obviously look up to you, and I want to achieve even maybe half the things that you've been able to achieve.
no, inshallah.
Barakallah fikum. And obviously, I also do look up to you in terms of religion, right? And so I think my advice to you would be that keep doing what you're doing, and inshallah, a lot of people will follow.
Amin, amin, amin. Jazakumullah khairan, Mustafa. I've really enjoyed this. I think like a lot of people we bring on here have like a background from like growing in America, but I love that like you're bringing like a different perspective, and I really like enjoyed it. It feels like I've lived in Pakistan basically through this podcast. So Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much. I think like yeah, I've always met you mostly in the masjid. Maybe there's a burial we have to go together and all of that. I'll say keep doing what you're doing. May Allah make everything easy. Jazakumullah khairan.
Ameen.
It was a pleasure talking to you today. I really appreciate that you took the time to me. Jazakumullah khairan. I'll see
Jazakallah khairan.
inshallah. Talk to you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.